The air was tense. Only the shuffling of paper could be heard as the judge reviewed the case. Both sides of the debate were exhausted. It was time for the final judgment. They waited, and finally the judge looked up. The decision that would tear the population in two was made. This decision would trap society in a debate that would last for the next 3 decades. It will echo continuously, with no middle ground to be found. Before the 1973 decision of Roe v. Wade, abortion was considered a crime.
Pregnancy was something we didn't talk about back then. That was something that was, you whispered it, and if somebody in your class got pregnant, they disappeared.
Women who wanted to have an abortion prior to the decision of Roe went to great lengths by using dangerous homemade methods to terminate their pregnancy.
There were many clumsy attempts to have an abortion, and that was where you saw kind of the quotes, the back alley type abortion clinics, and you hear all the horror stories of coat hangers and speculums and that. And as a physician, and having trained earlier than that period, I was able to witness many of these women after one of these attempts. Many were successful, but many were fraught with bleeding and infection, which were the two huge problems from an unmedically done abortion attempt. And many of these women, unfortunately, died. And in New York City alone, there was 100 women that died almost every month from having a botched or a home attempt abortion.
In the 1960s, as women became more vocal in advocating for their rights, they also began to press for legal abortions. To them, it was their choice whether to bear a child into the world or not. This view soon came to be known as the pro-choice group. Only a decade later would one debate decide the entire fate of their movement, Roe versus Wade.
In 1969, Norma McCorvey was an unmarried pregnant girl in Dallas, Texas who wanted to have an abortion. However, Texas laws at the time only allowed abortions in cases where the mother's life was threatened. McCorvey went to the Texas courts pleading for an abortion. She argued against the Dallas District Attorney Henry Wade and stated that even though her life was not endangered, she still had the right to terminate her pregnancy in a safe medical environment, although the court still denied her an abortion. Later, two lawyers, Sarah Weddington and Linda Coffey, approached McCorvey to push the courts for women's constitutional rights to have an abortion. McCorvey agreed and filed a case against Wade on March 3, 1970, under the alias Jane Roe. Arguing against Chief Defenders J. Floyd and Robert Flowers, the case was reviewed on December 13, 1971, and again on October 11, 1972. Through these debates, a heated battle was disputed over the 14th Amendment.
Well, the plaintiff in the case was arguing that the right to privacy included the right for a woman to elect to have an abortion. And of course, the defense was arguing that that specific right wasn't included within the language of the Constitution itself.
Finally, on January 22, 1973, 7 of the 9 judges voted in favor of Roe.
This is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite.
Good evening. In a landmark ruling, the Supreme Court today legalized abortions. The majority in cases from Texas and Georgia said that the decision to end a pregnancy during the first 3 months belongs to the woman and her doctor, not the government. Thus, the anti-abortion laws of 46 states were rendered unconstitutional.
The decision of Roe was broadcasted everywhere: newspapers, televisions, magazines, billboards, and even comic strips. The once forbidden topic had become the talk of the century.
Despite the outcome of Roe v. Wade, many were skeptical about the interpretation of the Constitution that permitted the court's decision.
Anytime you have the Supreme Court going outside of the specific language of the Constitution, you're going to have legal scholars arguing that they've exceeded the scope of their authority.
The people who opposed the court's decision became known as the pro-life advocates, who pressed to set restrictions on legal abortions through hundreds of legal cases.
Call these roadblocks, if you will. I mean, the Oklahoma law is one of the latest ones where they force the mother to look at an ultrasound of the baby in the womb, the fetus in the womb, heart beating and all that. There's the waiting periods. There's some states now that have absolutely no providers that will do an abortion, so a woman has to go to another state or another area to have this performed. The funding for it, the Hyde Amendment that took away any federal dollars from the Medicaid population or any federal money, period, to fund women that wanted to have an abortion. Even though it's legal by our laws at this point in time, states have put these roadblocks in place, whether it's a waiting period, whether it's notifying parents in terms of the age group, spouses, x-rays of the fetus, all these things to try and put a block in the way of a woman's right to make a decision.
By limiting the access to abortion, the authority that was granted by the decision of Roe has drastically decreased.
So every law that we pass is a way to go to the legislature, to the Supreme Court again, and overturn Roe v. Wade. So we've been chipping away at it probably since 1973 with little laws like that.
The pro-life campaign did not stop at persuading just the courts. They also reached out to the public. Through education, they counseled women on the effects of abortion and showed them alternative options to abortion.
The pro-life movement is not a no, you can't do this. It's a yes, you can. Yes, you can have your child. Yes, you can fulfill all of your hopes and dreams. And, you know, sometimes your option may be adoption. Sometimes it's keeping the baby. And it's really unique in the pro-life movement is to not only to reach out to these women on college campuses, but also to reach out to women who have had abortions as well, and to help them get counseling that they need.
However, the efforts of the pro-life movement went to the extreme as some advocates felt the need to resort to violence.
Oh yeah, we used to be bomb threats in the 90s at Planned Parenthood. One day at the abortion clinic, I wasn't there because I was a counselor in a different building. All the anti-choicers came in and they duct taped themselves to each other. They duct taped their arms together and they laid out on the floor of the Planned Parenthood all duct taped up so the police couldn't drag them back out. And they blocked the front entrance. And they thought they had, their statement was, we have stopped abortion for one day.
Around 1992, pro-life advocates went from simple blockades to using tactics called the No Place to Hide campaign, which intentionally targeted individuals that they saw as the weak links in the chain of legal abortions.
You know, if not daily, weekly reports of some clinic or some doctor's office or something being bombed or threatened or fire bombs thrown through the windows.
The goal was to drive doctors and clinics that provide abortion out of business, and it seems to be working.
It evolved that a lot of physicians no longer wanted to practice in that area. They restricted their practices because of fears of injury to themselves, their clinic employees, and so the effect on the medical profession was that a lot of people gave up doing that aspect of medicine.
Despite the violence, most pro-life advocates used peaceful means of protesting, such as the March for Life campaign. They also assisted women through education, helping them make responsible decisions about their bodies.
Roe v. Wade failed to resolve the issues over abortion that were developed 3 decades ago. Instead of putting an end to the controversy, it raised more questions and arguments than it answered. Yet despite the complications it created, numerous successes did come out of it.
A great job of raising the awareness, you know, and you know, making choices more available to girls.
Through awareness, society has become more educated on the subject of abortion, and through education, the number of abortions have decreased.
In that time period before Roe v. Wade, there was an average of about 1.4 million abortions a year. Now it's interesting to note, since that time, the abortion rate has dropped to 1.3 million abortions a year, even though there's many more people.
And since Roe versus Wade, women have really, and over the last 14 years that I've been in medicine, women really are learning to make their own decisions, take care of their health. Don't let bad things like abortion happen. Plan in advance. Be in charge of your health.
Roe v. Wade triggered a battle of tug-of-war between the citizens of our society. The debate failed to resolve the issue over abortion, but it did succeed in bringing awareness to this controversial topic, and it continues to spark new arguments and understandings within our society today.